Faith and Prayer, presented by Jesus on the 22nd of June 2013 in town of Mergen, Queensland, Australia.
Do you have to know who your soulmate is before you can be at one with God?
No,
Right, good.
but you will. You don't have to do anything, but you will.
No, to be at one with God though.
Before you become at one with God, you will know for certain who your soulmate is. You will. But you don't have to. Do you see the distinction? No? Well, it's like usually a person progresses enough in love to the point where they reach the third to fifth sphere in their condition. Once a person reaches that condition of love, they will know for certain who their soulmate is. And the knowledge is the knowledge. You know it, and you know. Like, it doesn't mean you'll be together, but you know.
Does it mean you have to actively look for that knowledge?
No.
Or it just happens?
Yeah,
Okay.
definitely happens. Like all of the things that God does. Remember, seek first God's love, and all these other things will be added to you. You will know for certain who it is. You may not be able to act upon it for moral reasons. You may not be able to do much about it yourself in terms of their attitude. Might be one of, where they're in a rage or whatever, and there's not much you can do about that until they work through their negative emotions. But you will know. Yep.
Actually, another one. When you receive divine love, does your soulmate receive that as well?
Well, it's your soul that receives it,
Yeah.
and you're only one half.
Does it? So it impacts them in some way?
Of course. Every time you receive divine love, it impacts upon them, yes.
Okay.
Every time. Yep. Jane, over there. So some of you are going, shall I receive divine love anymore? It's like, I don't know if I want to receive divine love if we're going to meet my soulmate. I want control. Fire away, Jane.
Can I just ask, in relation to what Teresa just mentioned, with the soulmate, could the same emotion be felt by them too? What you're going through, something similar?
Not always. It
Not
depends
always.
on their sensitivity and your sensitivity. So obviously, the closer you get to God, the more sensitive you become emotionally, and therefore the more in tune you are with everyone around you, including your soulmate. And of course, your soulmate being the other half of you, you're in tune with them the most. Does that make sense? Now, because you're in tune with them the most, you will feel their feelings the most, but only if you're open to feeling those feelings. So if they're still, struggling to work through fears and other type of emotions that are quite intense, then it's highly unlikely they'll be sensitive enough to feel any of your emotions that you're going through at the time. But if they've worked through some of that, then it's highly likely they will start to feel you. So I could feel, before I met Mary, I could feel what emotions she was going through. Does that make sense?
Yep, I'm sort of meaning something a little bit different, that
Right.
if I go through some sort of emotion about something, can that trigger off in them something
course.
similar, like a similar...
Not necessarily similar.
No.
There might be all sorts of injuries that person has, your soulmate has about that issue. You release some of your blockages. Now there's an opening to your other half, and so now the other half is almost forced, if you like, to go through those same emotions, or they will have to exercise huge amounts of resistance in order to cope with their life. So what you often see first is they exercise huge amounts of resistance, they go into rages and they carry on, and then after a while they stop their rebellion and then they actually deal with the actual emotions.
Okay, thank you.
William? Down the front. Just have a cough.
AJ, I feel that I'm pretty lucky in that my mother does quite a bit of emotional processing as well.
Mm-hmm.
And being sensitive, I feel that it makes it easier for me to then deal with the same issues.
Definitely
it
does.
Doesn't clear it, I know that.
Yep.
But it does make it easier. So if I were to deal with an emotional injury,
Yep.
would that then make it easier for my soulmate to deal with a similar emotional issue?
Yes, and even to a greater extent than it does if you're the parent.
Okay.
Yep. Okay. So are we getting rid of some fears here? Exercising some fears about our soulmates? Is that what we're doing? But honestly, the beauty of what God has created cannot be underestimated. And one thing that we constantly do as humans is we constantly think through our own emotional filters about these issues. And we've got to start giving that up. We've got to let go of that, because the way God created this issue of soulmates, the issue of relationship with God, the issue of your own soul and its development and all these other things is just so beautiful that it makes no sense at all to fight the process. No sense at all. And yet we still fight the process. And it's not a logical thing to do, fighting the process. You're just fighting the other half of yourself if you're pushing your soulmate away. You're just pushing, you're actually constructing a fragmented self. Because remember that your soulmate, in the pure state, you are joined, right? You are joined with each other. So when you're in this state, where you've got half one and half the other, and you've got, in your two bodies, right? That's not the state that God created you to be in. That's the state that God created so that you get to know yourself and then the other half of yourself. So God created this as a temporary state, not a permanent condition. God created this as your permanent condition, a unified state with the other half of yourself. Right? If you look at the world today, many people on the planet say that all we're trying to do as a human race is discover ourselves. And one reason why we've all failed at it is because we're not discovering that we're only one half of ourselves right from the beginning. That's one of the reasons why it's difficult. So there's a lot of advantages to allowing yourself to go through this process of discovery. Of course, it's not going to be some kind of idealistic, fantasy, because both of you have injuries. Both of you have emotional problems that you're facing, right? Both you and your soulmate. And of course, those emotional injuries are going to get confronted at some point in the future. And so, of course, it's not necessarily going to be all passion and fireworks at the beginning. In fact, there might be fireworks, but no passion. And often that is the case because we have so many injuries with the opposite gender, or in the case of a homosexual soul, with the same gender and, with intergender issues. And so we have to work through them if we're ever going to really join with our soulmate. But God created it like that because it's part of the perfect plan for your future awareness. You see, that is your real self. And if I am only one half of my real self, I will never be able to have the power that the whole has. I'm never going to have the happiness that the whole has. I'm never going to have the experiences that are possible in terms of what we can create in the universe that the whole has. So while I'm fixed on staying one half of myself, I am fixed on controlling my future development. Now, God wants you to have an infinite future development. God wants you to continually grow infinitely towards God. That's what God wants. And while I'm trying to stay one half of myself and drawing a line down between that and the other, what am I doing? I am controlling the process that God has created for us to naturally achieve. Right? Now, that process can only happen through the reception of love, like many other processes. You will not understand most of the things in the universe without the reception of God's love. That's the reality. You think you do, but you won't.